Hi, welcome to my channel. In this tutorial I'll be teaching us how to draft a basic bustier corset pattern. The measurement is displayed on the screen. So the first thing I just did was I drafted a basic bodice. So I drafted from the shoulder to the hip point. We'll be adding the top length measurement later. So the first thing I just did was to divide the remaining part of the shoulder after the neckline into two, and I directed it down to the bust point. So I'm going to measure what I have from the bust point to the under bust point, then take it up. If you want coverage, you can use the exact thing you have, or you add at least the maximum of ½ inch actually. So now we're going to be doing our under bust tightening. Please take note that there's already a dart here. The dart I put here is 7.5 on both sides. So we'll be adding extra ½ inch there as the under bust tightening. We'll draw that later. So on the bust points, you come up by 1 inch or 1.5, maximum of 1.5 inch, depends on how much coverage you want at that point. Then you direct it, so ½ inch on that part, but the height is going to be 1.5 or 1 inch, depends on your preference, and you connect it to the bust point. So on that middle part, the standard is usually 1.2 to 1.5. It depends on the person's bust size, but maximum of 1.5 inch. Then use your curve to connect it. So now I will be connecting that. Okay, so you try and watch the way I placed my curve so that you try and replicate the exact same thing. You'd make sure that your curve goes above the bust point so that you don't have any pointy tip. So the next thing we are going to be doing is to be putting our bust side dart. That is the difference between your front half length and your back half length. You put it there. You come in from your bust measurement by 1 or 1.5 inches. It depends. Then you draw that straight line up onto your armhole. Use your curve to connect that part, but please make sure that it is giving you that very round shape. You see how round it looks. So now we'll do the over bust tightening. So it depends on the person's bust size. You can use about ½ inch to 1 inch, but here I'm going to be using 0.75. Please note that I'm using 0.75 on both sides. The bigger the person's bust, the more dart intake will need. So now you confirm what you have on the other side and make sure it's the same, because usually one side is longer than the other, so you just make sure it is the same, or you can just as well through the darts and just connect it. So now I'm going to use the curve to draw my neckline that I want. So now this thing I'm doing is, if you are working with a bustier that is strapless, it doesn't have a sleeve, you're not using a yoke, this is exactly how you draw it. I'm just doing this explanation for the sake of anybody that wants to do a corset bustier that doesn't have a yoke, but I will still alter this because mine is going to have a yoke. So now I'll be working with the length. So the trick about having a perfect corset is that don't make it too long. The longer it is, the more inconveniencing it will be. You won't be able to sit, your clients will not be able to sit comfortably. So usually the length of a corset is around 22, 21, it depends. Maximum of 22 I would advise. So I just connected my dart. So at that side, in order for it to be comfortable and it's not poking the person or choking the person on the hip point, I'll just go up there by 1 inch and connect it like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is to rejoin our armhole for the yoke, for the sake of the yoke. But please note that this armhole is already contoured, so that's the reason I didn't do the regular take off ½ inch from the midpoint of the armhole, and this armhole is already contoured. So now so the next thing we are going to be doing is that, if now we come to the waist snatching part, if you want to snatch the waist and you want it to be snatched like at that point, on this way you're going to have like multiple pieces of your front panel. So you measure 2 inches from there, you get the midpoint that is left from the waist, then you will connect it. So at that point you add another dart, advisable maybe ½ inch on both sides. I'm just explaining this for teaching purpose. I'm not doing this method. I'll be explaining two methods. So 1/2 inch on both sides, and you take about 1/4 inch at the bottom, so that it's going to snatch that bottom a little bit too. Because sometimes you see a corset and you see that at the front part is poking out, and it's obvious that you're seeing that it has a full corset on the inside of the dress. So that's the reason you take out a little bit from this point. But at that underbust point, please make sure you connect it back. Don't take anything away from your underbust again, because we had already done the underbust tightening, so that it's going to sit firmly. So this is one method to snatch the waist. Then the second method is reduce from the waist. So please note that if you are reducing about 1/2 inch from one side, that means you are reducing total of 2 inches front and back, because if this is the front in half, that is 1/2 inch on this side, 1/2 inch on the other side. Then at the back too, that is another 1/2 inch on both sides. That's total of 2 inches. So just choose your struggle. You can even go as much as 1 inch too. But note that if you're using 1 inch as the snatching, that means you're taking off 4 inches from the person's waist. So I'll be using 1/2 inch here to snatch this part. Then I'll connect it back to the top and throw it down to the bottom too. And use the curve to take it down like that. But if you want your front panel to have multiple pieces, you can use the first method I explained. But this is the method I'll be going with. So please, if you've not subscribed to my channel, I don't know why, please subscribe. Thank you very much. So the next thing we are going to do is to style the neckline, like we are going to be putting a yoke. So we have to through the upper dart, and before you can through one dart, you have to open the other. So this way it's easy to style the neckline properly. You'll be using one of your curves to achieve the kind of neckline that you want. So it depends on how you want the yoke to be styled. So you just use your curve, but note that you have to through the dart before styling this, like so. So you can open it up and you see what you have there. So the next thing we're going to do is that in order for the armhole not to be too small after sewing the dart in place, anything you have that you've taken, you return half of it back at the side. Okay, so what I mean in essence is that if you're taking 1 inch, a total of 1 inch away from the overbust tightening, you will return 1/2 inch. Whatever you're taking away as the overbust tightening, return half to the side so that your armhole doesn't go smaller than you want. So now we're going to be closing the side dart. You'd use a tape to close it, and you will now redraw your curve to make sure that it falls in place. So I'll be explaining to us how to do a 3-part cup styling, but I'll be using 2, but I just want to explain, so in case anybody wants to do a 3-part cup styling. So at the center front there, you come down by 1.5 inches. At the middle, at that part where I took the overbust, that you come down by 2.5, and at the edge you come down by 2 inches. Then you use your curve to connect the 3 dots together. So that is it. Very, very easy how to do your 3-part cup styling. So you can just basically style this cup any way you want it to be styled. And another very important thing is that when you're drafting a corset, you need these 2 curves. It's actually very important. You can't do without either of both. You just need the 2. So this is me trying to connect it together to give it a very, very nice shape. So please make sure that when you throw your dart at that point, you have to throw your dart so that that upper part becomes one piece. Then the other 2 sides will be the 2 and 3. So that's a 3-part cup styling. But I'm not going to be doing that. I just explained that for the sake of the tutorial. So another very important thing is always try to label your corset, your center front, side front, your yoke, the upper part, then the part that would be meeting at the bust point. So now this is me trying to give the neckline I want, because it's a sweetheart neck. So this is it. It's just for the sake of the tutorial I explained the first part, So next thing we have to do is to cut out all our pieces. Please note that when you're cutting out on fabric, add your sewing allowance to every side that you're cutting out from. Add your sewing allowance. So now I'm going to be doing the yoke tightening. You just have to basically add a dart to the yoke so that it's going to be very firm. Then whatever we took out as our dart for the yoke, you would return half of it. Please take note that we are returning it so that it falls in place, so that it's going to sit well. So before you cut out, you have to draw the shoulder line properly, because of the contour we did at that point, the shoulder line might not be equal again, and I added sewing allowance to it. So this is that about the front part. So now we're moving to the back. So the first thing we're going to do at the back is to put our nipple to nipple measurement, and you draw it like that. Label the bust point, waist, and the top length. So next thing I'm going to do is to input my dart. So the dart I'll be using for this is 1/2 inch on both sides. So you connect your dart. I went about 1.5 inch above my bust point for my dart. So now if you're putting a zip, because not all corset has the lacing bar behind, if you're putting a zip, please note to do the tightening at the waist point to avoid any bulge that is from the back. So you just go in by 1/2 inch on that waistline, then you connect that curve back to the top. It's going to go a little above your bust point, then you come back to the bottom. So now I'm going to put the waist measurement, and I'll put my dart at the upper part, at the bust point to put the same thing. I'll just put the measurement and make sure you put you replace the dart that you've taken out. So our next tutorial will be on drafting a bustier corset for a plus size. So please stay tuned. So I'm going to be doing my waist tightening now. You can do the same way I explained in front. You can just take away from the waist measurement, or divide the remaining part of what you have at that part left, divide it into 2, then you input a dart again. So that means your panel is going to be 3 instead of 2. But this is another method, is the easy method. So now we'll be taking out the space we want after adding our lacing bar. So I took out 1.5 inch at the top and then 1 inch at the bottom. Then for the length, I just curved it by the side so that I'll have the same thing, the same length I have. I just curved it. So this is the back depth. I went up by 1 inch from the bust point, then connected it to my armhole. So now I'll be drawing my neckline. The standard neckline is 3 and 1 for the back. That is the width of 3 and the depth of 1. So now the back neck styling. So this is like the most popular neck, but make sure that you come in from the dart leg. Make sure that's the most important part. Come in from the dart leg. I'll be explaining 3 types of neck styling for us. If you want the ones that you have to put buttons at the upper part of the yoke, this is how they do it. You just give it like a very teardrop look. You have buttons at that part. So another way is you can take it up so that you have just 1 button, but the opening you have at the back is not going to be so much. But the space you're creating is just a space for just 1 button or 1 hook or whatever it is you want to use to close it up. But I'll be using this good old method. Make sure that you draw that shape from the dart leg. So the next thing we are doing now is labeling our patterns. Know the part that is going up, and make sure you mark your waistline, then you cut out. So another tricky part, a beautiful part about the yoke. Personally, I don't like my yoke to have joining by the shoulders, at the shoulder point. I do not like it for any reason, especially when you're working with illusion net. So the best thing to do is that the front yoke and the back yoke, make sure you tape both together, and that is it. You have your yoke in one piece without having any seam joining at the shoulder point. Please make sure you notch the point where both meet so that you know when you're attaching your sleeve. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.